Heartwarming twist, racist cop beats black teen then discovers his father is a special ops hero. It was a sunny summer day, the kind that wrapped the small Midwestern town in its golden embrace, as people gathered for the community event. Laughter filled the air, kids dashed around, their energy piercing the veil of despair that too often clouded their lives. But in this shining moment, beneath the chatter and music, stood Jaden, a 17-year-old black teen with dreams soaring high, yet tethered by the heavy chains of racial prejudice and financial struggle. As he dribbled the basketball, a fierce intensity resonated in him, each bounce echoing a promise he made, to make it as a professional athlete, a way to escape the hardships that clung to his family like shadows. Jaden's mother, a pillar of strength, worked multiple jobs just to keep food on the table and a roof overhead. Her fierce determination painted him a map of resilience. Only the empty space where his father should have been whispered uncertainty in his heart. A decorated special ops veteran, his father fought bravely for the country but remained a stranger to Jaden, a void too painful to acknowledge. Then tensions erupted. Officer Davis, the local cop notorious for his aggressive patrols, confronted Jaden during the event. "What are you doing here?" he barked, his voice slicing through the festive atmosphere. In that moment, misunderstandings spiraled, fists clenched and hearts raced. The cheers turned into gasps as the scene escalated, and suddenly it wasn't just a misunderstanding, it was violence. Each punch Jaden felt wasn't merely a hit, it was a hammer shattering his future and the dreams he held so close. Chaos consumed the event as Jaden's overwhelmed emotions cut through the crowd like a scorching fire. His face, bruised but unyielding, became a symbol, a flicker of outrage that ignited protests, setting the stage for a battle against systemic injustice. The community, once united, found itself slipping into divisions, neighbors turning against one another in a firestorm of anger and pain, but amid that turmoil, a startling revelation surfaced. Officer Davis learned that Jaden's father had once fought side by side with his own dad in the line of duty. In that moment, time froze. The realization shook the ground beneath him. Jaden's anger, fueled by the revelation of shared history, tangled in a web of confusion and deep-seated emotions. How could the son of a hero be perceived as a threat? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jaden faced a monumental crossroads. The weight of his father's legacy pressed heavily upon his shoulders. He could feed into the cycle of revenge, letting grief consume him, or he could rise above the embodiment of forgiveness and understanding in a community desperate for healing. The air thick with expectation hung as he prepared to address his neighbors, his heart racing with nervous energy. His voice could either sow discord or inspire hope. With the world watching, would Jaden find the courage to mend the rift, or would the chains of hatred anchor him in despair? As he stood there, breath held tight in his chest, the next chapter of his life hung precariously in the balance, waiting for the strength that only understanding and compassion could bring. Jaden took a deep breath, the world around him fading into a blur as he centered on the faces peering at him. Some were familiar, a mix of curious neighbors and childhood friends, while others were strangers, eyes narrowed with judgment. He felt the pulse of the crowd like a drumbeat, urging him to rise, to speak out. "Look at me," he began, his voice surprising even himself with its strength. "I'm just a kid with a dream, trying to make something of myself. But today, that dream felt like it was snatched away from me." His words hung in the air, tangible and piercing. Officer Davis stood at the edge of the gathering, his head bowed slightly. An uncomfortable silence spread, but beneath that silence was a simmering fury mixed with confusion. Jaden's face was bruised and swollen, but the fire in his spirit burned brightly, igniting courage in others around him. "I didn't do anything wrong," Jaden continued, pacing slightly on the makeshift stage they had set up. "I was here, like everyone else, wanting to have fun. We live in a world where you hear my skin before you hear my voice. And that's not right. His mother, standing at the front, wiped tears from her eyes. She had worked so hard to shield Jaden from the reality of prejudice, yet here was her son, standing tall and unyielding. I've learned about my dad, Jaden said, his voice quavering ever so slightly as he spoke of his father. A man I don't know. A man who fought for this country and the very freedom we all claim to cherish. I don't want to lose his legacy to anger or revenge. He saw Officer Davis flinch at the mention of shared history, and something shifted in the air. The weight of their father's friendship tangled with their own lives, creating a bond born of pain and misunderstanding. A murmuring began to ripple through the crowd, voices rising in support, some calling out in agreement, others questioning. Maybe the real fight is here, Jaden continued, hope edging into his heart. Not against each other, but against the barriers that keep us apart. His words carried weight, like a stone thrown into a still pond, creating ripples that would stretch far and wide. As Jaden stepped back, he caught sight of a flicker of recognition in Officer Davis's eyes, something that hadn't been there before. Recognition of shared humanity, perhaps, and not just a badge. The officer's hands were now relaxed at his sides, the tension seeping away like water into thirsty earth. Why can't we come together? Jaden's voice rose with fervor. Let us find a way. I don't have the answers, but I know we can't heal if we keep fighting. We have to start listening. The crowd was restless, every person weighing their own thoughts against the stirring in their hearts. Some started to nod in agreement, while others stood skeptical, caught in the fear of old beliefs and prejudices. Davis finally took a step forward, his breath shaky, but grounded in a newfound sincerity. You're right, Jaden. I've failed you and the community. But I want to learn. I want to change. As whispers of surprise broke from the crowd, Jaden's heart raced. This could be the beginning of something monumental. But would the community embrace this chance at unity or cling to old grudges? Jaden felt the weight of the moment, a fragile truce possible but not guaranteed. As he looked across the sea of faces, he knew they were at the edge of a pivotal decision, the pressure mounting thick in the air. Could they break free from their past? Or would they allow fear and anger to shatter this moment of hope? The answers were still waiting to be discovered, unearthed in the hearts of a town fighting for change. Jaden stood at the makeshift stage, the air thick with a tense energy. The crowd shifted, some faces a mix of hope, others still clouded with skepticism. He could feel the weight of their expectations pressing down on him, questioning whether the small spark of change he had ignited could really catch fire. Officer Davis cleared his throat, trying to bring the crowd's focus back. I want to apologize to each and every one of you. His voice was shaky, rich with remorse. The tension that had gripped the crowd began to loosen as people leaned in, drawn closer to this unexpected moment of vulnerability. Then, his mother stepped forward, wiping away the tears that still pooled in her eyes. You think you can just say sorry and everything will be okay? She challenged, her voice ringing with a mixture of anger and grief. Words aren't enough, officer. We need action. We need change, real change. Jaden felt a swell of support for his mother, a shared understanding pulsing within him. She's right. He added, emboldened. You can't just want to learn from this moment. You have to fight for it. Show us you mean it. The crowd murmured in agreement, the heartbeat of the assembly quickening as they began to rally behind him. It amazed Jaden how one simple moment could bridge so many gaps. It felt like stepping into a river. He could feel the current pulling him, but it also gave him strength to push against it. Officer Davis nodded slowly, absorbing their words. I know it'll take more than apologies. I've seen how the badge can blind me to my own biases. But I'm willing to listen. To learn. His eyes locked onto Jaden's as he continued, I want to create a community where no child feels afraid to dream. I want to work with you, not against you. But it has to be a partnership. Jaden felt the tremors of uncertainty ripple through the crowd again. Could he trust this man, this officer who had been part of a system that seemed so unyielding? Yet, there was a glimmer in Davis's eyes that suggested an earnestness that had not been present before. "Let us start small," Jaden suggested. "We can hold a community meeting. Let us talk. Share our stories. People need to feel heard." The words seemed to hang in the air, enticing like the promise of dawn after a long night. Davis nodded. "Yes. We can schedule that. I'll reach out to the precinct. It's past time for us to open those doors." His voice grew firmer, a flicker of commitment shining through. A wave of voices rose, each person expressing hopes, fears, and dreams. The crowd began to transform, no longer a mass of skeptical souls, but a fabric of varying colors, woven together with threads of understanding, unity, and a desire to forge ahead. Jaden felt the energy shift, a vibrant pulse in the air. This wasn't just a moment, it was a movement starting to bloom, fueled by the passion of those gathered. But in the back of his mind, a question loomed: was this real? Would they truly follow through? The crowd erupted in conversation, with ideas bouncing from one person to another. Laughter mingled with tears, hope mixing with lingering doubt. Jaden stood back, a smile breaking across his bruised face. For the first time in days, he felt the weight lighten from his shoulders, but as the crowd began to disperse, a heavy sense of responsibility settled in. How could he make sure this wasn't just talk? What would it take to keep this momentum alive? The shadows of doubt crept back into his mind, filled with the anxiety of wanting to believe in this moment. Jaden took a deep breath, his heart racing with possibilities. Could he really lead this charge? Could they change the narrative of their lives? He gazed out over the lingering crowd, now in small clusters deep in discussion. As Jaden walked away, he felt a new weight in his pocket. It was a faded piece of paper. He didn't remember picking up a contact number. It was from Officer Davis. An invitation to continue the conversation, to keep pushing for change. A smile crossed his lips, a flicker of hope igniting once more. The battle was far from over. It was just beginning. But what would be the first step he would take in this journey? The answer hung in the air, waiting to be explored. Jaden walked down the cracked sidewalk, the sounds of the crowd fading into the background. His mind buzzed with the electricity of hope, yet it was laced with an apprehension he couldn't shake. The faded piece of paper felt heavier in his pocket than it looked, like a tiny anchor pulling him toward an uncertain future. He glanced back at the gathering. People were still huddled together, their animated discussions a testament to the surge of connection sparked that evening. But could this new energy last? Would Officer Davis truly follow through? His heart surged with the possibilities. A community meeting could be the first step. A way for everyone to come together, to share their stories, their struggles. Jaden imagined the air filled with voices, laughter, perhaps even tears, in a shared moment of transformation. But then doubt crept in like a shadow. What if they all came together, only to find that nothing had changed? He pushed the thought aside, focusing instead on the flicker of hope that had ignited during the speech. Home was only a few blocks away. Each step felt heavier as he approached the familiar house. He opened the door and was welcomed by the comforting smell of dinner wafting from the kitchen. His mother was cooking, he could hear her humming softly to herself. A faint smile tugged at his lips. "Hey, Mom," Jaden called, stepping inside. She turned around, her eyes instantly lighting up. "There you are. I was getting worried. I heard all that commotion out there, I thought something happened." "Just the opposite," he said, grinning. "You wouldn't believe it. I think something real is starting." His mother wiped her hands on a dish towel, her expression a blend of skepticism and curiosity. "Oh. What do you mean?" He shared the details of the evening's discussion, how Officer Davis had been open, how the crowd rallied together. With every word, Jaden's excitement grew, and he could see the shifts in his mother's expression from doubt to cautious optimism. "That's incredible, Jaden. But remember, talk is just talk until it becomes action." Her words pulled him back to reality. "I know, but this is something. It's a start. I want to believe we can change things." His mother's eyes softened. "You're right. You have to believe it. But be prepared, people often resist change. They might not want to keep talking." He nodded, acknowledging her wisdom. "I just wish it could be easy, you know. Like, doing all this work and pushing for change feels like trying to climb a mountain." His mother walked over and placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Every big change starts small, Jaden. And remember, you're not alone in this. You have a community behind you." They shared a moment of silence, the weight of her words sinking in, grounding him. But as they sat down for dinner, Jaden's thoughts drifted back, imagining all the faces he had seen earlier, the hope shining in their eyes, the stories waiting to be told. After dinner, once he was alone in his room, Jaden pulled the piece of paper from his pocket. The ink was fading, but the number felt full of promise. He wondered what Officer Davis would suggest next. Almost instinctively, he picked up his phone, glancing at the clock. It was late, but something inside him urged him to call. What if this moment of connection could lead to more? Maybe they could plan the first meeting right then. His finger hovered over the screen, uncertainty battling with excitement. But what if they started talking and things went south? What if he put himself out there and created opportunities just to have them crumble? In a moment of boldness, he pressed the call button. The sound of ringing echoed, the tension rising inside him with each beep. He thought of his town, his friends, and the chance to break through the walls that had kept them apart. Then came the answer, a gruff voice with an undertone of cautious warmth. "Hello. Officer Davis, it's Jaden," he said, almost surprised at himself for letting the words flow. "I'm ready to talk." A long pause followed, stretching into uncertainty. Finally, Davis responded. "Great. I was hoping you would reach out. I think we could really make something happen." As a new sense of determination surged through him, Jaden felt the path ahead begin to unfold. Ideas formed in his mind, but he'd need to meet challenges head-on. But was he truly ready to challenge everything he had ever known? With sharper clarity, he understood this wasn't just about the community anymore. It was personal. It was about finding his own voice amid the chaos. He took a deep breath, the weight of uncertainty still present. But this was it. This was the moment he had been waiting for. "What's the first step?" he asked, his heart pounding with anticipation. In a small, quiet voice, he felt the echo of his own journey, and it was only just beginning. Jaden's heart thundered in his chest as he awaited Officer Davis's response. The pause charged with anticipation felt like an eternity. "We need to gather some folks for a meeting," Davis finally said. "Bring together people who care. I'll help facilitate. We can create a plan, a real one." "Okay, when do we do this?" Jaden felt the heat of hope flooding through him, an unfamiliar warmth that pushed the doubts to the back of his mind. "Tomorrow evening. Can you spread the word?" "Absolutely," Jaden replied, his voice bouncing with eagerness. "I'll talk to everyone. I know they'll want to be a part of this." "Good," Davis said. "I'm looking forward to it." After they hung up, Jaden sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the walls of his room that felt suddenly different, brighter. Tomorrow was going to be big. But self-doubt lingered at the edges. What if nobody came? What if they didn't want to talk, or worse, what if they got angry? He shook his head, forcing himself to think positively. A small community was starting to form, one that could band together and have powerful discussions. The following day, he drifted through school with a sense of purpose. In between classes, he told his friends about the meeting. Their reactions varied. Some nodded eagerly, others raised eyebrows. He could sense the unease in a few of them. Would they think too much chatter wouldn't change anything? "Jaden, do you really think this will do something?" asked Mia, biting her pencil. "People are set in their ways." "I know," he said, searching for the right words. "But we have to do something. Just sitting around won't help us." This is a chance to be heard. She sighed, looking thoughtful. Okay, I'll come, but I'm not sure what it'll lead to. They sat in a tight circle, surrounded by reluctant yet curious faces during lunch. Jaden could feel the mixture of apprehension and cautious excitement buzzing in the air. As they spoke about their feelings, the apprehension seemed to lift just a little. Maybe they were more interested than they let on. As evening approached, the excitement blended with anxiety. Jaden could hardly focus on dinner, his mind racing. He rehearsed a few lines in his head. He knew he needed to convey both urgency and hope to ignite the community's spirit. When he arrived at the community center for the meeting, the room was small but filled with the warmth of familiar faces. The air buzzed with anticipation, and he took a moment to collect himself as he stood in front of everyone. "Thank you all for coming," he started, feeling the tremor of his own voice. "I know we've got issues in our community that need to be addressed. We've all felt it. But tonight, we have a chance to be heard." Jaden's nervousness began to fade as the faces around the room shifted from apprehensive to engaged. He spoke about Officer Davis and the letter, emphasizing the hope they could create. But as the conversation deepened, he sensed a shift in tone. An older man stood up, his voice strong yet burdened. "You think we can change? No one ever listens to us. Why would they start now?" Jaden felt a knot in his stomach. He opened his mouth, desperate for something to ease that heavy air. "Because if we don't try, then nothing will ever change." Suddenly, a voice called out from the back. "But that same officer has turned a blind eye before. How do we know he's not just playing us?" That question hung in the air like a bomb about to explode. Jaden felt it pierce through him. Doubt washed over the room as people nodded, their faces etched with fear. "We need to show them we're serious," Jaden said, fueled by adrenaline. "Maybe we can secure a meeting with other officers. Maybe we can create more dialogue." As the discussions continued to swirl, Jaden could sense the energy start to shift again, people engaging in heated arguments but also finding common ground. It was messy, but it felt alive. It was then that he noticed Officer Davis standing at the back of the room, his presence looming quietly. Jaden caught his eye, and for a moment, he felt a strange surge of emotion. Was he ready to take that leap of faith? Just as the noise began to dim and moments of understanding emerged, another voice edged into the conversation, startling the collective thinkers. "We need to talk about the real barriers, the ones nobody wants to address." Jaden's heart raced as he turned to see who had spoken. Nothing could have prepared him for the revelation that would rock everything he thought he knew. The room fell silent as Jaden turned towards the voice, a girl he recognized from school, Maya. Her gaze was intense, her expression fierce yet vulnerable. This was someone who seemed ready to unleash her frustration, and Jaden could feel the energy in the air crackle with tension. "What barriers, Maya?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. His palms were sweaty. They needed to focus, but the gravity of her statement hung over them like a dark cloud. Maya stepped forward, eyes scanning the room, willing others to see what she saw. "It's not just about the officers or the council. It's about the way we treat each other. The way we view our own worth. I see kids every day who don't believe they can change things because they've never been shown they could." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, and Jaden felt his heart pick up again. People were listening. It wasn't just about anger at the system, it was about healing the community from within. "Take my brother, for example," she continued, her voice rising. "He was rough with the law, but it wasn't because he was bad. He felt powerless. When we feel like trash, we act like it. We lash out. But we could lift each other up instead. We could help each other feel valued." Maya's vulnerability broke through the tension in the room. Jaden could see the connections forming as others nodded slowly, absorbing the truth of her words. It was uncomfortable, yet freeing, to recognize the hurt they all shared. "Exactly, Maya." Another voice chimed in, and Jaden recognized it was Sam, a quiet kid in their group. Maybe it's less about pointing fingers and more about sharing our stories. It's not just them, it's us too, you know. We need to look at ourselves. Jaden felt a warm rush at Sam's words. It was a bold step, one that showed they weren't just victims, they had agency too. The tides were shifting. Was his simple meeting capable of prompting this? As the night wore on, discussions spiraled into debates, ideas aired like washing clothes on a line. They swapped their fears, their dreams, it felt like a pressure cooker, slowly releasing boiling steam. But just as Jaden felt lifted by unity, an unsettling thought crept in. Were they prepared for the fallout of discussing these tough subjects? Were they truly ready to face the barriers that had been built up over years? Wait, Jaden interjected as the conversation opened into realms he hadn't prepared for. If we really want change, we should be willing to confront not just the outside forces but what's inside of us too. Now, all eyes were on him. Their expressions were a mixture of intrigue and disbelief. Did they even want to peel back those layers? He could feel the weight of expectation pressing down. But if they were to grow together, they had to take all the risks, didn't they? The door creaked open behind Officer Davis, and he stepped inside. The quiet, yet steady look on his face told Jaden there was more to say. The shift he had felt all evening was real enough to reach the officer standing in the doorway. "Keep talking," Officer Davis encouraged, his voice firm but gentle. "There are ways I can help, but I need you all to be honest. Will you take that leap?" Jaden's heart raced once more as he looked around the room at their faces, searching for signs of determination. Who knew what would happen next if they stepped into the unknown together? A girl in the back whispered, "We can't keep hiding, we can't keep pretending." The air felt electric, rippling with potential. This could be it, their moment of reckoning. And yet, as the voices mingled and the emotions intensified, the reminder of what was at stake loomed large. With his heart pounding, Jaden sensed that their journey was just beginning. He swallowed hard, prepared for the questions that awaited them. But he had to ask, if we're ready to change, how do we confront the barriers we've built within ourselves? The room fell silent again, the weight of their mission pressing down heavily. One question lingered, unasked but felt by all: were they truly prepared for what lay ahead? Jaden's voice cut through the stillness, a tremor of hope woven in. He could feel anticipation unraveling into a spectrum of emotions in the room. Faces of uncertainty mixed with determination flickered like shadows against the dim light. He steeled himself. This was the moment, right here, right now. Someone in the front shifted nervously, breaking his focus. "We can't act like we're the only ones with these issues," Maya said slowly, as she caught Jaden's gaze. "There are people outside these walls who are fighting too. But our strength comes from understanding ourselves first." She took a deep breath, her eyes daring any doubters. "We have to be real. If we aren't honest about our pain, how can we expect anyone else to believe us?" That challenge resonated. Jaden clenched his fists, courage building in his chest. Maya's right. We owe it to ourselves and to those who feel the same way. What if we really shared what we've been through? What do we have to lose? A ripple of sound traveled through the crowd, an electric hum. It signified readiness mixed with fear. A girl with bright pink hair, Zoe, leaned forward. "I can start. My dad's in prison. Everyone thinks it's because of bad decisions, but he's only ever tried to protect us. The system failed him." Her voice trembled but held a fierce clarity. "He was a good man. I get angry inside, but I want to be the change to break that cycle." A quiet murmur of empathy followed her words. Jaden felt the weight of her truth settle in the air. It was one story spoken, but it struck deep into the very essence of their gathering. "I can relate," Sam added, unsure but gaining momentum. "Kids at school don't know. They think my family is perfect. But my mom struggles with depression. I feel like I can't talk about it. I just want people to see that we're all struggling. But what's the point if we can't talk about it?" Every revelation chipped away at their fears, illuminating their shared scars. Jaden held on to that warmth, that collective heartbeat pounding in rhythm. But beneath it lingered an aching thought: how could they heal if the world outside remained indifferent? Officer Davis shifted, hands clasped before him. Your voices are powerful. You matter, and each of your stories holds weight. But the truth is, it'll take time. Dealing with this isn't easy. Time isn't what we have, Maya countered, her voice a fragile song trembling on the edge of frustration. We can't wait for perfect conditions to change anything. We need to act like, today. How do we begin? Jaden looked at her, then at each person present, as heartbeats echoed against the stark walls. It was one thing to speak about change, it was another to stand up and fight for it. His stomach knotted, the urgency hanging thick in the air like damp fog. We can start with one small action. Something simple that might show others we're serious. The room buzzed with thoughts and murmurs, people leaned in, ready to brainstorm. Ideas floated through the air: the community cleanups, open forums, art displays, all unearthed like precious gems just waiting to shine. But just as they seemed ready to crystallize their action, a loud shout echoed from outside the building. Startled, they all turned as the door flung open, revealing a group of students from rival schools, tension radiating off them like electricity. What is going on in here? One of them demanded, eyes darting as they took in the scene. Jaden's heart raced again, fear mingling with determination. This could either escalate into chaos or overturn prejudices. Whatever happened next would define more than a night, it could shape the future of their community. Meeting the gaze of Maya, Jaden swallowed hard. Are we ready to face whoever walks through that door? Can we really be the change we want to see? The moment hung heavy, a crossroads beckoning them forward. What would they choose? The tension in the room thickened, and for a moment, all eyes were locked on the intruding group. Jaden's heart hammered against his chest, a wild drum echoing his sense of urgency. The diverse crowd of familiar faces bristled with uncertainty, feet shuffling, glances darting between one another. He could almost feel the electricity in the air, like a storm ready to break. Hey! We're not looking for trouble, Maya called out, her voice ascending above the general murmur. We're having a conversation about what we're facing in our lives. We're just trying to be honest and work towards something better. The lead student from the rival group, a tall boy with a hardened expression, crossed his arms. Sounds like a pity party to me, he sneered. Laughter rippled through his friends, but Jaden could see the fear behind their bravado. Maybe it's not about pity, Jaden asserted, stepping forward. Maybe it's about listening and learning from each other. We all have our struggles, and some are worse than others. He breathed deeply, searching for the right words. Our issues don't have school colors. They touch everyone regardless if we wear red or blue. The boy narrowed his eyes. And why would we want to listen to you? What's in it for us? As the questions poured out, the crowd shifted, caught in a whirlwind of emotions. Jaden could feel the weight of so many stories lingering behind him, stories of pain, resilience, and hope. It wasn't enough to just speak of change, it had to be something they all shared. Zoe stepped forward, her pink hair a vibrant contrast to the seriousness of the moment. Because you'd be surprised how much we have in common. I mean, we're all just kids trying to figure things out, right? Our lives are full of things we didn't choose, and I bet each of us has something we want to change. Silence enveloped them for a heartbeat, and then, to Jaden's astonishment, another voice emerged from the rival group. A girl, her arms wrapped tight around herself, looked uncertain but determined. My brother was suspended for standing up against our school's unfair rules. All he wanted was to change things for his friends. She glanced at her peers. Maybe we should hear them out. It's not like they're our enemies. Jaden noted the slightest shift in the tone of the rival group, a crack forming in their armor of hostility. They were listening. He could sense the possibility flickering between them like a candle in the darkness. Hey, another student chimed in, a tall guy with a baseball cap pulled low. Why don't we just sit down? If we're going to talk like really talk, it should be fair, right? I've seen stuff on both sides that just sucks. Maya moved to take a step closer, her presence calm but commanding. Let us all create a space. No judging, just sharing. Suddenly, the atmosphere lightened just a fraction. Jaden could see they stood on the edge of something that could reshape perspectives. All it took was for someone to take the leap. His pulse still raced, but now it was from an unexpected, warming hope. All right, the lead boy said finally, his voice softer but still guarded. Let us hear what you got. They formed an unsteady circle, everyone standing awkwardly yet connected by a shared sense of purpose. Jaden felt the knot in his stomach begin to loosen. This was the moment, a chance for a deeper understanding, for common ground. Around him, eyes carried stories that could resonate, but just then, the sound of sirens wailed in the distance, cutting through the fragile unity forming in that room. In the thickening darkness outside, a flicker of apprehension returned. What now? Someone whispered, the weight of uncertainty suddenly flooding back in. Jaden's heart raced again. The sirens were a reminder of the world's chaos, and it struck like a sudden downpour on their tentative peace. Would they rise above? Could they still turn this moment into a movement? As the distant noise drew closer, Jaden felt a surge of determination. We can do this together. But what would they do when faced with the reality of the world outside? Would they stand united, or would the age-old divisions pull them back? The night was far from over. The sirens grew louder, blaring like a monstrous alarm clock demanding attention. Jaden felt the collective heartbeat of the group, a rhythm that mirrored his own halting breath. What if this was only the beginning of another storm? What if the hope they had just ignited was snuffed out before it could grow? Stay calm, Maya whispered, her eyes wide but resolute, as if she could dispel the mounting fear with sheer force of will. We have to focus on what's happening right here, right now. Almost instinctively, they all looked towards the door, as if it could somehow provide the answers they desperately sought. Jaden, his mind racing, tried to rally his thoughts, to push back against the rising tide of panic. Maybe the sirens were a sign, maybe they meant something beyond fear. The girl who had spoken earlier, the one with her arms wrapped tightly around herself, took a deep breath. Look, can I just say something? She stepped forward, her eyes darting between those present. We've all seen some crazy stuff happening in this city. I mean, there's a lot of anger and misunderstanding already out there. We don't need to add to it by letting fear divide us even further. Right, a boy from Jaden's side chimed in, stepping up to stand beside her. Let us just be honest with each other. I don't want to go back to that old way of thinking. Fighting is just exhausting. People shifted in the circle, nodding reluctantly. It was as if the air around them thickened with something they hadn't acknowledged, the urgent need to change. I think we should share our stories, Zoe proposed. No holds barred. If we can be real with each other, maybe we can figure out how to bridge the gap. Ugh, stories that sound so cheesy, the lead boy said, crossing his arms. Yet even he couldn't hide the flicker of curiosity in his eyes. Something was shifting. All right, I'll go first, Zoe said, her voice shaky but steadying. I mean, I'm dealing with this whole family issue with my mom losing her job, and since then it's like there's this weight hanging over all of us. We can barely afford groceries, let alone anything extra. Her voice cracked, a fine line of vulnerability creeping through their moment. Jaden sensed the wall around the rival group began to crumble as they listened. One by one, others began to step forward, sharing snippets of their lives, the fears they carried, and the dreams they hesitated to voice. When the lead boy finally spoke, it was with a woolly reluctance. Fine, my dad, he's a cop. He always talks about being out there, putting himself between the good and the bad. But hearing everyone else, seeing how life can be a mess everywhere, it just makes me wonder if it's all worth it. His voice wavered between vulnerability and the weight of expectations. As the tension in the room shifted, a faint sound of laughter emerged. Someone had cracked a joke in the background, a reminder that even in darkness, light could seep through. The sirens, now fading into the distance, seemed less ominous, and Jaden felt a flicker of warmth spread through the group. They were connecting. But just as they settled into this unusual warmth, the sound of a heavy, authoritative voice boomed from outside, slicing through the comfort they had just formed. A pair of flashlights cut through the dimness of the room, illuminating faces full of worry and fear. "Hey! Is everything all right in there?" The group froze, hearts racing. Would they be able to maintain this fragile connection in the face of authority? Jaden felt the walls of unity trembling under the weight of reality. What would they say when challenged? Would their voices stand strong together, or would they crumble once more? Jaden's heart raced, the authoritative voice echoing ominously in the newfound atmosphere. He could feel the tension spike, like a rubber band stretched to its limit. "Stay calm," he whispered again, searching the eyes around him for reassurance. Maya stepped forward, unflinching, her voice steady against the sudden wave of fear. "We're okay. We're just talking," she called. It felt bold, yet fragile, like the first vine sprouting in the concrete. Jaden's pulse raced, hoping more than ever that this moment could bring everything they had built together. The door creaked open further, revealing Officer Davis, his expression a mix of concern and curiosity. "What's going on in here?" he asked, his presence a blend of authority and potential allyship. The air hung thick, whispers exchanged among the crowd. Jaden felt the heat of every gaze, every heartbeat wrapping around him like a shelter. This was their moment. Could he truly turn fear into understanding? We were just having a discussion about how things are in the community," Jaden ventured, his voice rising with determination. "About sharing our struggles, to find healing and understanding." Davis narrowed his eyes thoughtfully, digesting the words. He held up his hands, suggesting calm. "I think that's a great start. But we might need to move this outside. It's important to be open, but let us keep it safe as well." Jaden nodded, a mix of relief and excitement coursing through him. Maybe Davis was the bridge they needed, an agent of change willing to listen. "Okay, everyone," he said, his voice ringing out like a bell. "Let us move it outside, but keep the energy alive. Share your stories together, we can face whatever challenges come next." The group shifted, stepping into the night air together, an unsteady formation but united nonetheless. Once outside, the stars flickered above, each like a tiny spark of hope. Faces softened under the moonlight, an unspoken understanding weaving them closer. Jaden breathed in deep, the fresh air filled with potential. They could do this. They had each other, and it felt like the beginning of something profoundly beautiful. Together, they sat in a circle again on the grass, surrounded by the soft sounds of a summer night cricket serenading the atmosphere. Davis moved among them, ready to listen more openly now. One by one, voices emerged, tales of struggles and victories mingling together, stories that bled, raw emotions that cut to the heart of who they were. The lead boy spoke about his father, detailing the burden of expectations and the disillusionment he felt. Zoe shared about her mother's job loss, and the weight it put on her family. Each narrative unveiled the humanity that lived in all their hearts, awakening empathy even where there had been animosity. Jaden felt the weight of history literally lifting off them. He knew this wasn't a quick fix, but tonight was a crucial start. He interjected, "We can form a weekly gathering and open dialogue, where we can express ourselves freely. Each story matters, and we can learn from each other." A ripple of agreement flowed, voices chiming in with support. "Let us be the example," Maya said, "not just here, but outside these conversations too. If we stand united, others will see the change we want for ourselves." Jaden looked around at Maya, Zoe, the officer, even their rivals. It was breathtaking. Nothing had changed the world yet, but there was promise brewing, like the dawn of a new day on the horizon. As their plan developed, a bond cemented among them, and laughter erupted, bubbling over the seriousness of their earlier conversations. Each chuckle was like a tiny flicker of light in the darkness they defaced, a collective push against the shadows. But just as they began to feel their momentum, the unsettling sound of sirens blared in the distance again, pulling the group into a moment of weighty silence. The collective happiness ebbed, fear creeping back in like drifting shadows. They had just taken one step forward, but the world outside was relentless. Officer Davis took a deep breath, standing tall in front of them once more. Those sirens represent the challenges we face every single day, but they don't define us. What we choose to do here, right now, can still ignite change. He turned towards the crowd, their faces reflecting a mix of uncertainty and hope. I'm here to help you create a stronger community. I want to be part of this change, too. With that, something shifted again in the group. Jaden felt it, a fusion of urgency and determination igniting inside him. They were turning this fear into an instrument for growth. Let us keep this fire alive, he said, his voice rising over the crowd. Their collective story held weight, it mattered. Each of them, with a flicker of courage, would be the agents of change, capable of steering a ship toward understanding. And as they faced the sirens together, a sense of unity grew, powerful and rich enough to bridge the gap between the past and the future. Tomorrow was uncertain, but tonight, they were no longer bound by fear. They were free, now was the time to act. Jaden looked around at those familiar yet transformative faces, all ready to embrace this challenge. Who's with me? He shouted, feeling the raw power of hope coursing through. Together, they shouted in unison, we are. All at once, the weight of the world seemed less burdensome. They were ready to fight the good fight, to transform misunderstanding into collaboration. They were more than just words, they were a movement ignited among them, and it felt absolutely real. Would they embrace this change and let it flourish? This was only the beginning. Don't wait not even one more second to share this story with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Show them that change can happen when we come together. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and comment your reactions and feelings about this breathtaking ending. This is the moment to show your support.